For years, SUVs have typically been diesel powered. Diesel engines have usually been first choice for towing a caravan as well. But in recent years, the popularity of diesel power has diminished, even among buyers of SUVs and tow cars. This car, the Seat Tarraco, is available with petrol and diesel power, but we're testing the petrol version with a 1.5 litre turbocharged petrol engine with 150 horsepower. The same engine is used in many Volkswagen Group cars, all the way from small hatchbacks and crossovers right up to a large 7-seat SUV like the Tarraco here. Now, you might well be wondering, is a 1.5 litre engine up to the job, especially if you're going to tow a caravan as well? Well, we're going to put the Tarraco to the test to find out. During the course of this review, we'll focus primarily on what the Tarraco is like to tow with, how stable it is, its performance and its fuel economy. But we'll also consider what the car is like to drive from day to day, and we'll have a thorough look inside the cabin to look at how spacious and practical it is. Finally, we'll take a look at value for money and running costs before we deliver our final verdict.
When you've watched the video, please do remember to click like and to subscribe to the Camping and Caravanning Club's YouTube channel. Click on the notification button to make sure you never miss a video again. For our test, we've matched the Seat to a Swift Fairway 580 with a mass in running order of 1,306 kilograms, borrowed from club preferred dealer Broad Lane Leisure.
So the engine has 150 horsepower, but it's torque rather than peak power which really counts for more when towing. Think of a powerful engine as like a racehorse with lots of top-end speed, whereas a torquey engine is more like a cart horse. It might not be as quick, but it's more capable of doing a lot of hard work. Now this engine has 184 pounds-feet of torque, which is quite a lot for a small capacity petrol engine, but the alternative engine in the Tarraco range is the 2-litre TDI. Now it costs more to buy, but it has 266 pounds-feet of torque. Now that is a big difference and makes the diesel, frankly, better suited to regular towing. Even so, the 1.5 litre petrol isn't out of its depth towing the Swift. It does need to be worked quite hard to build up speed though, and you may need to take charge of the gearbox from time to time to really make the most of what torque the engine does have. It's also possible when you're making a hill start, even in the dry, to briefly spin the front wheels. Now you would think that would be a fairly easy fix. You buy your Tarraco as a 4x4. But even though this is an SUV, you can't get a 4x4 version, at least not as a new car anymore. If you want a 4-wheel drive Tarraco, you'll have to shop for a used example. The absence of a 4x4 version may be disappointing, but the Tarraco stability is pretty solid. There's some slight movements when you're around HGVs or caught in a crosswind, but otherwise the big Seat is secure and controlled.
Firm suspension helps keep car and caravan under control, and without a caravan, this makes for a sporty and enjoyable drive.
The Seat certainly feels lighter on its feet than a Kia Sorento, which perhaps is unsurprising when the Seat's curb weight is 1,665 kilograms, which is hundreds of kilos lighter than the Kia. The trade-off for the firm and sporty suspension is a rather stiff ride around town. It's certainly not as comfortable over lumps and bumps as a Skoda Kodiaq.
Let's take a closer look inside the cabin.
You sit up high in the Tarraco with a good forward view. The seat in our test car, which is FR spec, is electrically adjustable, and it also has electric lumbar support, which is a big plus if you suffer from back pain. I found the seats to be very comfortable, although they are quite heavily bolstered. These are sports seats on the sporty FR model, but they're not too narrow and restrictive, so I've still found them to be comfortable on a long motorway drive. Straight in front of the driver you have a digital display which you can configure using these buttons to show different information or to have a different style of display, whatever you prefer. In the centre of the dash there's a big, crisp and clear touchscreen infotainment system. It looks good, but it can be a little bit fiddly to use. You do have to take a bit of time to learn your way around all the different menus. Now, if you've watched a few of these videos, you may have heard me say this before, and I'll sound like a stuck record, but I absolutely hate these touch-sensitive controls for the air conditioning. What is wrong with proper buttons? Absolutely nothing. A proper button is much easier to use on the move without becoming distracted, rather than trying to feel your way for the right bit of this touch-sensitive pad here. You do get 2 USB-C ports to keep your devices charged up, although it is a fairly narrow aperture and it can be actually a little bit fiddly to plug your phone in. In terms of storage, you've got a big bin here underneath the driver's armrest. You've got twin cup holders, and the cup holders themselves are sprung, so they'll hold different size cups securely. And you've got big door bins on either side that are chunky, and they're lined with a sort of felt material to stop things rattling around. So that's an overview of the front of the car. Let's take a look in the middle row. Anyone in the middle row has plenty of space. There's lots of head and leg room, enough for adults to travel in comfort. You get a couple of air vents between the front seats to keep everyone at a comfortable temperature, and there are separate aircon controls for the back of the car, so those in the back can choose a different setting from those in the front. There's a USB-C port and a 12-volt socket, although it's a shame there aren't 2 USB-C ports to stop teenagers squabbling about who gets to charge their phone up. You get Isofix mounting points on the outer middle seats, I should say, which is pretty much standard. You'd expect that. What you might not expect is that there are also Isofix mounting points like these on the front passenger seat, which is a great feature if you ever need to travel on your own with a young child. So, plenty of room in the second row, but what about the third row? Well, that isn't quite so welcoming. If I move this seat out of the way, then you can see not a huge amount of head or leg room. Okay for kids maybe on short trips, but adults certainly aren't going to be all that comfortable back there for long. Now, you can make the third row more habitable by moving these seats forward. The middle row slides back and forth over quite a long range on runners, but it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, isn't it? Because you then miss out on the decent leg room that you get with the seats all the way back in the middle. So if we put this seat back, let's go and take a look in the boot. Now, perhaps predictably, boot space with all 7 seats in place isn't great. Think weekly shop really, rather than family holiday. But if you lower the third row into the floor, which is a nice quick and easy job, then you have a much bigger, much more practical space. So really, it's probably better to think of the Tarraco as a 5-seater with 2 occasional seats for emergency use, rather than the kind of 7-seater that you're going to fill all 3 rows with people on a regular basis. When the time comes to go towing and you want your tow ball to appear, it drops down at the push of this button here, and then you just move it the last way into place to lock it into position by hand. The electrics are on the side where they're well clear of the back bumper.
At the time of our test in the late summer of 2023, the Tarraco 1.5 TSR FRDSG costs £38,980. Being just the right side of £40,000 means the Tarraco avoids a big car tax surcharge for 5 years after the first year's tax expires. Go higher up the range and you'll have to pay the extra £390 per year, a good reason to stick with FR spec or lower. The official combined economy figure is 37.2 to 39.8 mpg. While towing the Swift, we've seen a respectable 24.3 miles to the gallon.
So the Tarraco is a good tow car with 1 or 2 reservations. The rearmost seats are cramped, and it's a crying shame you can no longer buy a proper 4x4 version. Is the 1.5 litre up to the job of towing? Well, yes, so long as you have a reasonably light caravan, but there's no doubt the diesel version makes a better tow car. Either way, the Tarraco is stable, practical, and good to drive.
If you've enjoyed the video, Feel free to click on the thumbs up button to like it and let us know what you think in the comments.